We're live.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I am so excited to have you here. Welcome to How to Win at Content Marketing. We have such an incredible session for you. So, what I will do is not waste your time and jump right in to introducing this incredible panel of speakers that you see right here on your screen. Now, first up, who will be our presenter of the day. And if you work in marketing, you know Rand Fishkin, right? Rand's the co-founder and CEO of Sparktoro, a really phenomenal audience research software company. He's also the best-selling author of Lost and Founder and a phenomenal cook. If you follow him on Mastodon or LinkedIn, you know those regular photos of those fancy meals that he cooks for the love of his life. Super successful author, Geraldine DeRuyter. I'm still working on how I can get adopted by them, mainly because the coolness factor and the meals. But if that wasn't enough, Rand and Geraldine are also currently making a video game. Much more to come on that soon. So you can see why adoption things are on. Like, please, let me come live with you in some way. Also joining me is Jason Miller, who is currently the head of brand and content at Tyke. The fun story is Jason and I both worked at Microsoft together. He also worked at LinkedIn, which I now work. But Jason has the coolest career. He has worked at companies like Marketo, LinkedIn, UC Berkeley Extension. And he has this passionate music, photography, heavy metal. He's been the UK editor of the Vinyl District. And Jason has a book coming out next month called Second Skin. So everyone, rush to pre-order it right now. And if that wasn't enough, I don't think Jason sleeps because he's also co-founded a startup called Thunderflix, which is like the Netflix for heavy metal. So definitely check him out. And then we have Ross Tavendale, who is the incredible, brilliant mind and founder and managing director of Type A Media, a London-based SEO consultancy. That the coolest thing about it is not just that they introduced the 4-day work week, is the fact that they were the 4-day work week pioneers, or the 4-day work week hipsters, as he said, because they founded it before it was cool, way back in 2018. And so Ross now focuses on developing the agency's data journalism offerings. And having interviewed Ross for my book, like, I just know that there's going to be a wealth of information to share. So what we will do is I'm going to kick it off to Rand. Rand, tell us, how can we win at marketing? And then we'll come back to Jason and Ross and learn lots of case studies, success stories, and probe them about what they're doing right now that's actionable for us to take away. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. Rand, take it away.
Oh, thank you very much for that kind intro, Perna. Before I get started, I think it's only fair. Perna Virji is one of the most accomplished, talented, recognizable faces in the search marketing industry and the web marketing field overall. And Perna is both our kind host. She invited all of us to join this. She put this together. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. And Perna has a book coming out, which we are all going to pre-order. Thank you. Yes, exactly. High impact content marketing. I'm putting 5 of them in my indie books list because buying from Amazon is not the way to go. But you should probably buy from Amazon because they report the New York Times bestseller list, and obviously Perna should be #1 on that.
Rand, you're so kind.
Amazon's labor practices lately. Oh boy, wow, exciting. Okay, so I want to dive right in. Ross, Jason, and Perna are all going to join me in here, and they're going to tell me when they disagree with me. I know I'm going to get to slides where Ross goes, "That's wrong," except he says it with, as he described it, a Mrs. Doubtfire accent.
I'm going to break out my Braveheart accent when I disagree, just to really send it home.
Ross, I don't know if you're aware, but Mel Gibson and Jews don't get along so well these days. So maybe you know,
I
somebody
I
else.
heard that. I mean, he's a racist and an alcoholic. He's the most Scottish person I think has ever existed. So there you go.
Oh, amazing. For more hot takes, stay tuned, friends. All right. And let's get right into it. So what I want to do is talk about some of the design of better performing content. My take is that there is 95, 98, 99% of all of the content that is made for web marketing purposes does not accomplish its purpose. In which case, why are we bothering to make it? I'm going to recommend, before you ever make anything, that you have a very clear picture of how your content that you are creating is tied to goals that are clear to the business. So a business goal might be increase the buyer conversion rate. Like, we're trying to get more of the people who come to the site or who see the product out in the wild to actually take it to the cash register and purchase it, or click that buy button online. And if the content goal is earn lots of traffic to the blog, this doesn't work. This is not actually making sense. And this often happens. I cannot tell you how many times I talk to folks whose content purposes and what they are doing does not align to what, if you were to ask the executive team, hey, what are our goals for this quarter, or the CMO, what are you trying to achieve? These things wouldn't match up. Another one, let's get more people in our core audience to be aware of our brand, to know us, like us, trust us. Okay. Well, gosh, if my content gets lots of views and engagement on social, I guess sort of, right? Like, it's almost there. You can make a through line a little bit, but it's not quite perfect, right? What the kind of alignment I'm talking about is, if you want to get more people in your core audience to be aware of your brand, then what you really want is to earn high engagement, social or on-site, from people who match your ideal customer profile. Now you actually have a match between the content goal and the business goal. And that's the ticket. That's what I'm talking about. Design is 3/4 of the battle, my friends. Like, if you actually get there, I find you have way more success, even if that success is small, because it's actually pushing the right levers. So I'm going to show you something that this is actually the world of behavioral psychology. It has this concept of an influence map, right? And the idea is that, you know, you have this visual framework for how a group of people might interact with a problem and what influences their behavior, right? So in this case, I'm going to apply the influence map to the marketing lens, which is, you know, we all have the buyer journey in mind. We're familiar with that. And in the case of content, right, the influence is about pulling the levers that can influence the kind of change you want to see at the problem phase you want to see it in. This is not rocket science. This is why we're all marketers, because we did not go into rocket science. I don't actually know everyone's background, but I'm gonna guess. I know I'm a college dropout, so that's where we get to. And so at each step, right, each step of the journey in problem discovery phase, right, where your customers learn that they might have a problem or that the problem exists for the first time, the sources of influence are going to be very different than in the further education phase. So I don't know how many people are familiar with my company Sparktoro, but it's not nearly as many people as were familiar with my old company Moz. And for Moz, almost all of our efforts were in further education and solution seeking. Like, that's where I did all my content and all my content marketing. And now with Sparktoro, because it's in a field that many people don't know, they don't even have terminology around, it's the opposite. It's problem discovery, right? Third example, for the video game, right, that Geraldine and I are making that Perna mentioned, it's all about brand awareness. It's a completely different step of the funnel. I don't have to explain the problem of, I want a fun video game to play. Like, billions of humans already play video games. The problem discovery phase is not where it's at. And it's not solution seeking either. It is awareness. Brand awareness is what's going to bring people to us. And you've got to pick and choose where you're going to put your effort and where your content design should sit, just like you do with business goals and content goals. So my advice is to target the correct audience in the correct place. Sparktoro is a big logo. And it's flashing. I don't control this, people. Like, see my hands? They're right here. That's not me. I think it's Jason. You messing with me, man?
Rand, when we said we wanted you to flash the audience, we had something else in mind.
I see. It's actually quite hard to remove clothing while you're wearing glasses, and also
we'll let you away with it today.
just today. So if you're targeting the right audience to the right places, right? Like dear God, this is Anton, isn't it? He's pulling these strings. Yeah, all right. I'll get him back later. If what you really need to succeed, right, is the problem discovery phase, like Sparktoro, right? So if our goal is to reach people who haven't yet heard of the problem that we solve and don't have familiarity with it, I shouldn't be creating content for and targeting the channels that don't fit into that mix, that don't accomplish that goal. So here's an example from the world of personal finance. In the problem discovery phase, right? Like maybe you're in your 30s and 40s and your career is accelerating and you're making some more money than you used to, or your kids have finally left college and you have fewer expenses than before, and you're like, maybe I should not keep all my money in a checking account and I should learn about investing. And so your sources of influence are there's probably lots of friends and family, right? Word of mouth stuff and news articles, and maybe emails from your financial institutions, right? That are making suggestions. As an example, when what happened? When I published my book, right? You get the advance all at once. I don't know if this is the case for you, Perna, right? But like the advance comes in and you put it in it just goes into a checking account. They wire the money into your checking account. And that advance tipped me over a number where my bank sent hey, you should come in for a private banking consultation, right? It's pretty smart, actually, like very smart, right? They realize, hey, this person who previously had this lower number in their account now has this bigger number. They should come in. In the brand awareness phase, right? It might be things like, okay, now this person has figured out, I have a problem that I need solving in the personal finance space. Like, I should probably go and do something about that. And so they're going to use Google, right? They're going to search. They're going to use some social media potentially, probably not Twitter anymore. But when I initially wrote this presentation, it wasn't owned by neo-fascist Elon Musk. And so Twitter was a reasonable place to have serious conversations. It could be that you go to Forbes or Fool.com, or you're reading like your personalized section in Google News about finance, those kinds of things. You're visiting Bankrate. And then in the further education phase, you might be checking out some of these more like the subreddit for personal finance, right? Or you might be going to NerdWallet and checking those out. And in the solution seeking phase, you're doing something very different, right? Now you're at I looked at all the US news rankings. I'm going to go and buy the Russell 3000 instead of the S&P 500 because the growth rate isn't as fast, but the risk is lower, whatever, blah, 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 blah. I need to find an online trading account to do that with. Okay, now you're going to go visit whatever, Fidelity and Vanguard and Ameritrade and Schwab, and all the brand awareness that was created along the way is going to bias you towards the ones that you have probably heard of and trust. And you might be less likely to go to, just to throw them further under the bus, Silicon Valley Bank, right? Like probably not going to be high on your list of where you're going to put your money in 2023. Ad agency selection, right? So same thing. I'm sure, Ross, you have experienced this plenty from the other side, right? Which is, okay, we need someone to do our, campaigns, right? They're going to run our brand campaign. They're going to run our ad campaign. They're going to take care of our paid search campaigns, right? And then at brand awareness, you get some recommendations. A lot of people reach out to me all the time and they say, hey, who would you recommend for? It's still mostly SEO agencies. A lot of people ask me about SEO, which I always have to reply, I haven't been in SEO for 5 years. Like I'm telling you, it's changed so much since I left the field, but I can still recommend lots of good and smart people that I know in that world. And then further education, right? Maybe you're going and investigating those folks. You're checking out their social presences and you're checking out their content and you're checking out reviews of them. And in solution phase, you might be listening to the in-person pitch. You're like, hey, Ross, you and your team come to our office and like give us the pitch or jump on a Zoom and show us what you've got. And okay, now you're going to choose. So this process, you can see how every different phase has different sources of influence. And unfortunately, what I find is a lot of content marketers just hit the same one. Okay, so I jumped too far ahead. My suggestion here, and Jason and Ross and Perna, I'd love you to jump in. My suggestion here is stop creating stuff for the wrong phase of the influence map, and stop creating content for the exclusive purpose of traffic and rankings if that's not the only thing you need. I'm really worried that content marketing has become synonymous with, I want to rank high in search engines for keywords. And that is not the only thing content can do for you, my friends.
Yeah, I hear that so much all the time, Rand, where everyone looks at content as this means to another end, whether my content's just for SEO or my content's just for my social media presence and to reach more people so my ads do better. I'm like, no, content on its own can do so much, regardless of what stage of the funnel it is. It can ultimately lead to more sales at the end. So yeah, I love what you're saying. And maybe you're going to talk about this in the next slide, but how often do you get, well, my boss, my customer says that they want us to reach more Instagram influencers. So we just need to do that. Like, how do you convince them otherwise?
I mean, I think it's totally fine. Like Perna, if your audience is at the phase where their attention on the problem space that you solve is following a bunch of dudes with six packs who do push-ups on beaches on Instagram, great. Like, that's fine. Then go ahead and run that influencer marketing program. But if that's not the case, don't do it. I think the problem is this bias toward, I've heard of this kind of marketing. Whatever, AI is so hot right now, I should use ChatGPT to solve this. What? Like, it boggles my mind how quickly we start to identify a solution and then try and shoehorn it into a problem instead of saying, what's the problem I'm trying to solve? And then what are the ways to solve that?
Rand, I'm going to double down on the brand awareness for 100. And I'm just going to say, like, I'm going to butcher this. I'm going to paraphrase you. But years ago, I think it was you who said there's a serendipitous element of marketing that we shouldn't be trying to measure. And I will tell you this. We went through the big data. We went through the lead gen phase, the big data phase, and now we're entering the trust and brand awareness phase. And I feel like so many people think that brand awareness is not important. It's a big fluffy arts and crafts metric, when in turn, no one's going to click on any of your content, or if they don't know who you are, they don't trust you. So I'm doubling down on brand awareness 100%.
Yeah, man, 100% with you. It is always shocking to me how powerful it is to be a recognized brand in a problem space versus a new one, and how much you can change the trajectory of the success of your ad click-through rate, your conversion rate, your organic click-through rate, which blah, blah, blah. I don't know if Google is still claiming it doesn't influence your rankings or whatever, but all of these things have positive impacts on everything else. And brand is, yes, it's difficult to measure. Absolutely, it's difficult to measure. And it's impossible to attribute, like completely impossible. You cannot say, oh, because people have heard of, whatever it is, Tyke, that's why when we got in front of them in the pitch, they said yes. You can't prove it. Your pitch was successful. They heard about you, but you can't do the attribution. You can measure, right? You can say, hey, this many people with this title interacted with our content on LinkedIn in the past 90 days. Great. Like, I like that metric a lot. I don't think that's a vanity metric. I don't think that's arts and crafts fluff.
You'll see it. You'll see it when sales comes to you and says they heard of us because of this, or more people are saying they know who we are. It will come. You just can't buck it up into something that fits nicely on a dashboard. That's the
That's
problem. And so it gets dismissed. Sorry, I'm
No,
more on
man,
that
I'm
later.
100%.
No, I love it. This is something people are so passionate about. I'm seeing all the comments as well going like preach or totally agree. Must understand the problem first for having a solution. It's these, everyone's so excited to chase the sexy silver bullet. They were like, no, you forget, like your success is rooted entire in your unsexy foundational elements.
This is absolutely true. I actually believe this all the way down to the core of how you build a business. But all right. Second, so third thing, I am going to strongly suggest that in addition to choosing the right problem space and source of influence, that you position your content for the kind of amplification that you need. We talked about Instagram influencers, right? So if you need Instagram influencers to pick up your content, brand, viral trend, whatever it is, don't design content that is meant for getting pitched on webinars, right? That is meant for conference organizers, that is meant for even YouTube. Like fundamentally, the YouTube channels that are highly influential in the space have a different set of criteria, a different sort of, I'm going to call it a vibe that they go for in the content that they pick up and amplify and the people they invite on their channels and the stuff that they cover versus Instagram. Different mediums, different followings, might even be the same people sometimes in those channels, but different medium means different kind of content. And so if the amplification that you need is from industry news publishers, don't go after mainstream media. That's probably the biggest one I see, is I see folks trying to press bait or do a big PR push, and they're always aiming for, I want to be in the New York Times, I want to be in the Wall Street Journal, I want to be in the Guardian. Are you sure? Are you sure about that? Do you think that maybe this small influential publication that reaches exactly the professionals that you want in your industry isn't A, a far more reasonable and achievable target, and B, a way more effective one? So that's my position there. Don't create for mainstream media if what you really need is YouTubers or industry news publishers or bloggers, right? Fourth tip, write the headline first. You can change it later. I know it's a little weird. It sounds like, wait a minute, aren't you getting ahead of yourself? Like, shouldn't I write the content brief? I'm going to suggest you write the killer headline and then do everything else with your, you know who your content is targeting, you know the business goal that it's aiming for, you know the positioning that you're going after and who you need amplification from. Go write the headline. This is because I think it's really easy for everyone on a content team, a client, an agency team, everybody to analyze, to overanalyze a content brief that contains like all sorts of things and nitpick it. But if you write the headline first, everyone can coalesce around that one thing real fast. Even if you're an individual content creator, I recommend this. Amanda and I do it where we're like, oh man, I could see this article just like crushing it on, whatever this platform, or getting picked up by this person, or inviting us to this conference to keynote about it, etc. I'll give you a few examples here. And then, Ross and Perna and Jason, I'd love to hear from you guys too. So, all right, goal. I want to earn high social engagement from folks who are researching how to invest their money. Or B, right? I want to earn links from sources of influence in the financial world that can earn brand attention. So how about this? That's pretty interesting, right? We looked at the 50 largest crypto, stock index, and real estate investment trust funds. And we're going to tell you which one won and by how much, right? If you had 10 years ago put your money into, a big Bitcoin and Dogecoin fund, if you would put it into the S&P 500 or the Russell 3000 or a real estate trust, who would have won there? I don't actually know. I don't even have really a guess. If I had to guess, I would guess probably the stock index, but it might still be crypto. I don't know how far it's crashed. That'd be really interesting. Lots of people are probably going to talk about that and invite you to talk about it and like see that analysis. And is it likely to accomplish the goals? right? That's the first question you and your team, your client, whatever, should be asking. And you see how easy it is to ask these questions around a headline instead of a content brief. This is kind of my suggestion there. The content brief might contain these questions, right? It might be like, is it going to provoke the emotional reactions we want? Do we need more data or better data? Should we analyze something else instead or in addition? Who's already predicted this? And does our data back them up, or does it prove them wrong? Is the conclusion exciting? Right? Like once we get into the research, are we going to have a great headline and then a hook, line, and sinker to do that? I think that's possible.
Yeah, and I would add to that. Don't give up either, right? So I can tell you, if we launched the same piece of content 10 times at LinkedIn because we knew there was an appetite for it, we knew it was valuable. We put it out there with 10 different headlines until we got the right one and nailed it. And no one cares. Social is very forgiving in that manner. But I love this approach, and I think it's great since it's doing all the heavy lifting. Have 5 or 6 of them, and then make sure if that one doesn't get the traction, don't let that content go out there with the best fighting chance of being successful, and don't leave it until you've extracted every ounce of value. And that concludes the headline.
Ooh, Jason, I love the pro tip to do the headline over and over again. That's killer, man. So smart.
Hammer away.
Just to add on to that, one of the frameworks that we use internally when we're thinking about content production and headlines is to look at identity, utility, and social information. And if you can put something around an identity, something that's physically useful, or something that confirms or breaks an already held belief, the headline tends to do quite well. We have the framework, so if the client is saying, I'm not sure about this, or even worse, if they're like, I have an idea, which is always alarm bells as the agency, right? You can always just politely say, does it fit the framework? And if the answer is no, then we can discount it. But I like this headline approach.
Ross, what percent of client ideas for content would you say are good ones, like get you in a good place to start?
About 5%, I would say.
All right. Hey, 1 in 20.
So the client, if we were building advertorial, would be great. But because a lot of the time it's editorial, there's a real distinct correlation between the more advertorial it goes, the harder it is to get into the press and have it stick and have people care about it. But then the downside is it doesn't sell as well because it's not meant to sell in that hit. But that goes back to your first point of like, pick it for the part of the funnel you're doing it for, not for every single part.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right. I was also going to suggest on the headline front, NPR has this great checklist for headline writing. If you haven't checked it out, you can. It includes some of these and a few others. I've got the link in the presentation, which, as Anton mentioned, I think everybody gets it after this goes out. Is that right, Perna? Great. So specific, easy to understand, inspire a reaction to your point, Ross, right? Around like having that identity and either challenging it or reinforcing it, which of course creates an emotional reason for people to share and amplify. Don't try to be overly clever. I highly recommend against this, unless you're Geraldine, in which case, obviously, she's a genius writer and the first thing that comes out of her mouth is always more clever than the 50 ideas I had. Capture the spirit of the story. I very much recommend this. The reason being, if you don't, you risk being clickbait, and the clickbait stuff has been sort of demoted and downgraded in all the platforms. Like it doesn't work well in Google search anymore. It doesn't work well in social anymore. And I think that's just because metrics have started to catch up with this whole, I click the headline, but then when I get there, I'm disappointed, or I don't take any more action. I don't linger. I develop a bad association with the brand, et cetera. All right. Let's talk a little more about answering this key question, right? Who is going to amplify your content, and why will they do it? Why? I think my tip numbers might be out of order here. Okay, I recommend starting with why someone will amplify. So Ross teed this up perfectly, right? And talked about how when you have an identity-based cohort of people, for example, if you have a bunch of crypto enthusiasts, right? People who are like, I still believe that cryptocurrency is going to be the future, and I have a bunch of investments there, and yada yada. Great. Like, that is a group of people who have an identity, and it's tied to their finances and to a community that they believe in. And so why will they amplify a piece of content? Well, probably they'll amplify it if it reinforces their identity, or if they think it's absolutely wrong, or if they think that it helps make the case for a stronger future. Perhaps it proves wrong some of the crypto critics, right? Something like this, right? It reinforces that identity, part of the belief set. There's a bunch of emotional triggers that you can use that work for the why. And my suggestion is this will often lead you to the who, starting with why, and then saying, now, who are those people who have that why, as opposed to trying to reverse engineer here are all the motivations of our target group of people. You can do it either way. I'm not strongly against the start with who. I have more success in my brainstorming starting with the why and then finding that who later. And I think that's because often the why drags along a more powerful and larger group of people than starting with the who and trying to narrowly create for them. The triggers are different. The triggers are different for different groups. Jason, did you have something that you want to jump in on there?
No, I did not. I have a fantastic example to follow up afterwards.
Oh, okay. All right. Excellent. When you ask who will help amplify this content that I'm creating, that I'm putting out there, bad answers are, this is no offense to me because I often use this top one. This is like my number one. Here's who's going to help amplify my content. My marketing friends. I have a bunch of friends in marketing. Like, yes, it's probably true that if I email Perna and I'm like, hey, will you share this on LinkedIn? She probably will say yes, unless it's terrible. But that's a bad answer, because that does not create a scalable effect, right? Like, she's only doing it as because we're tight and like we've been friends for a long time and we help each other out and that kind of thing. I also don't,
because Rand's content is always amazing and we always learn like 10 things with everything. So yeah.
And but why is it, Perna, do you remember how I failed for like 7 years to create anything anybody wanted to share? And then only after years and years, first off, probably nobody knew who I was for those 7 years. So,
but I think you're your harshest critic, Rand. Everyone knows, people follow it, people pay attention. So I think you always stuff, and in seeing you try different avenues was so interesting that people learned along with you, and there was always value.
I mean, that is very kind and also not true. I think you can go back to the Moz archives. I don't know if the new owners or acquirers have kept up the old content on the site, but if you can go back to like the first Whiteboard Friday videos, and they're terrible. They're so bad. Like, it's unreal. Okay. All right. Back on topic here. So people who like this thing, right? Oh, they like six-pack abs, so they're going to share my picture of six-pack abs on the beach. That's not how it works. We know it doesn't work like that. Some good answers. That's a good answer. This is the people and publication list that I put together for the launch of Lost and Founder. I'm sure, Perna, you're doing the same thing for your book, right? And the idea is I have a list of my highest priority people. I have a list of their names and the types of folks that they or publication or person that they were, and their website, and then I have their email addresses. And this is essentially my pitch list, and it is in order of who I think is going to be most influential to the audience that I want to reach. And it's very specific. And for every piece of content that you think has a good shot of doing well, I would make a list like this. It doesn't have to be, this was probably like 500 people long because it was for my book, right? Which I've been working on for years and was like a big deal. For a blog post, this list might be 10 or 15 people. It could be 6 people. Right? It's just, hey, I really want to get it in front of this group of folks. In fact, I made a list the other day. It included like 3 webinars and a couple of conferences. because that was the only place I was really trying to pitch that particular piece of content. And it wasn't a, it's not a blog post or a piece of research. It's a talk, right? And so I have here's my pitch list. I think if I get picked up by these kind of folks, it's going to work really well. I would start with the hook, line, and sinker. I really like this model. Once you have the headline, I would go through that hook, line, and sinker process. So here, I'll give you examples. This is like this framework that I sort of like for all the content that Amanda and I produce for Sparktoro. We try to do this, including the office hours webinars. And that is the hook, which is grabbing the attention and making a promise, right? So the headline is often this. It's, hey, I promise that I'm going to deliver this value for you, the reader, or the person who's going to engage with the content, right? So the title of this webinar, right? How to win at content marketing. That is a hook. It doesn't include the line and sinker. It doesn't tell you exactly what we're going to talk about, but it makes a promise. It says, hey, if you come to this webinar today, you're going to get this value from it. This is what it's going to be about. So I wrote this one a couple of years ago, 18 months ago, called What If Performance Advertising is Just an Analytics Scam? Ooh, spicy. Like that is a spicy take. And it's a hook, right? It's making a promise. Now, the line, right? Like the line is in the first paragraph, maybe 2 paragraphs, 3 maximum. You've got to deliver that line that provides the contents, that delivers on the content's promise, and hopefully earns an emotional reaction. So in this case, right, here, this is the line in my piece here, which was, herein lies the scam. I'm not saying no one buys because of a retargeting display or branded search ad. I'm saying somewhere between 2/3 and 100% of the people exposed to those ads would have purchased anyway. Now, I think the logical response is prove it, Rand. And I cannot completely prove it, but I do in the piece, right, provide a whole bunch of sinkers, right? I do provide a whole bunch of anecdotal evidence for this. And then at the end, I give the sinker, which is essentially, you don't have to believe me, but you can test this. And the test could be really powerful for you, right? If you have the power to invest any % of your digital spend in other serendipitous, hard to measure channels, Jason, right? Like we were talking about, then you should go for it. And you should see whether that impact is going to be bigger than reducing your spend on spending money in places where people might have already bought anyway. I'm not trying to pitch you the piece here. What I'm trying to pitch you is the model: hook, the line, the sinker. Here's another one from a very recent article. I just shared it the other day, right? Twitter's shrinking role as traffic source for news publishers revealed. Revealed. It's a hook. They're making a promise. They're going to show me this, right? They're going to tell me, hey, okay, here's the line. Data from publishers analytics firm Chartbeat showed the Twitter referral traffic that was this and that. Okay, details, delivers on the content's promise, earns an emotional reaction. And there's the sinker, right? Great graph, shows the numbers, sticks with the reader afterwards. Boom. That's my sinker. Inspires content and engagement. Wait a minute. Did they control for X and Y and Z? Wait a minute. Does that include this type of publisher? What if some of that is dark social traffic and they don't have a refer string? Great. Fine. No problem. You can quibble with the piece, but you've inspired the reaction already. Here's a piece by Geraldine. We eat at the worst Michelin-starred restaurant ever. Oh, okay. Now the promise, like you better deliver. Like this, you got to prove to me. How are you going to prove to me how terrible a meal was with just words and photos, right? And the line, I mean, there's lots of lines in here, but I've tried to come up with hypotheses for what happened. Maybe the staff ran out of food that night. Maybe they confused our table with that of their ex-lover. Maybe they were drunk, but we got 12 kinds of foam, something they can only describe as an oyster loaf that tasted like Newark Airport, and a teaspoon of savory ice cream that was all flavored. Obviously, she's a genius writer. This is going to be very hard to achieve, but it is delivering on that promise, which is humorous, right? The promise is humor. It's not serious. You don't have to totally prove it. And the sinker is a picture of one of the dishes we were served, which was foam that you had to lick out of a plaster cast of the chef's mouth. no spoons provided. And it makes the content stay with the reader. Like people have an association with this, even, what is it? Like this is published a year and a half ago. Inspires shares, inspires lots of comments, inspired Stephen Colbert to feature it on the, on his show, all that kind of stuff. All right. Hook, grab attention. Line, deliver on content promise. Sinker, give your reader an action. You can do this even in, not saying D&I is boring, but in relatively boring business context content, you can use the model even when it's not spicy and exciting. This model works throughout because it is how we expect to consume content. It's how we consume entertainment content. It's how we expect to consume content on the web. News content does it. I'd urge you to follow the model. All right. Quick little tip on how to do this. One of the things that I like to do is I go to Google News. I look for links that include the view full coverage thing. And then Google will often make the story that gets the highest sort of clicks and engagement around a topic the top story. You can do this with like Tech Meme and Memorandum, and they have a third publication that they run that also does kind of the same thing, right? Where whichever one gets the most clicks and engagement, they make the headline piece, and then everything else is the, these people also wrote about it. But you can see who's doing that hook, line, sinker model kind of the best in Google News's opinion around any particular topic. And that can be fun to learn from. Before we move on, I think, Jason, you had a great example of something from back here.
It was actually more of a campaign to kind of back this up at the end. But I want to double down on something else you said about opinions. And I think this is a terribly underutilized tactic, right? And I think we get so caught up in content marketing with like if you look on LinkedIn right now, it's 50 prompts for ChatGPT, 100 prompts, 10,000 prompts, the most prompts you can ever get. But like what no, you can't compete there because everyone's saying the same damn thing. But what you can do is you can distill that down what it means for a specific audience and give a very strong opinion, a spicy opinion, even better, but a very strong opinion on what that means for your audience. Everyone's saying the same damn thing, saying the same exact solution. My solution is faster than yours or whatever. But no one actually, like, I don't think there's enough. There's enough. Certainly, the world certainly has enough thought leaders, but not enough thought leadership. Let me just say that. And that thought leadership comes in the form of, what do you do with this? And how do you distill this down into something meaningful and impactful for your audience, right? Underutilized tactic.
Oh man, I would very much like to write a piece called "The World Has Enough Thought Leaders, but Not Enough Thought Leadership." That's beautiful. That is poetry. All right. Tip number 3 here. I have benefited a tremendous amount from this. You can probably tell anytime you see that content of mine that does well, which is that it almost always involves other people. And many times those other people, case in point, I am here with 3 people, Anton as well, right? Who not only are helping to make the content being presented better and adding opinions, but also add amplification and growth potential and reach potential. And if you are not familiar with Rand and Sparktoro, you're going to come because you've heard of Jason and you want to see what he's up to, and you want to see what Ross is up to, and you're very familiar with Perna and her work at LinkedIn, and so you're inspired to come from that, right? Involving people who will help you achieve your goals is golden. And so, if your goal is, I want to get this piece in Ad Age, because that will get it in front of the audience that I want. I know that I want to, keynote these kinds of places, and I want to get my agency in front of these folks and have success through that, right? And move my client earning needle and my close, my close rate through that. Wonderful. Find the people who are influential to Ad Age's readers. I'm showing you in Sparktoro, like a screenshot from our software, but you can do this manually in lots of ways too. But essentially 7% of all the people who engage with Ad Age on one or more of their social channels also follow Mark Schaefer and Jeremiah and Leo Burnett. Leo Burnett might be challenging to get, but Scott Galloway replies to almost everybody, more people than he should, I think. So here's a very, very niche, tiny example. This is like NTT Group on LinkedIn, right? Who has kind of a built-in advantage reaching their audience through their own team, who's followed by exactly the people that they want to reach. So this, did you really? Oh, that's so cool. That is so cool. That's way cooler than the things I use it for. I'm gonna, all right. I'm doing more with the video game.
Very specific and very helpful. And we found the hidden gems. Boy, that was like the easy targets to go after. It maps back to exactly what you're talking about. The audiences who care. There's the giant media ones will get lost in the mix, but they're the ones who actually are probably looking for some love. So why not reach out? So anyway, Thunderflixen, it was very, very helpful with us at defining our audience and finding those media accounts. So
that brings a little tear to my eye and joy to my heart to hear that. All right, so going to get through these other tips so that we can move on to some Q&A here. But I think making the content deliver on that killer headline is the key to having more success than just a spicy headline or an opinionated take, right? Like if you can really prove it, if you can show it, if you can inspire people to be like, oh, I might change my opinion about this thing based on what I have read in here. So this is like an analysis we did last year of what % of Twitter accounts were fake, right? After Elon said that a ton of them were. So, we know we've got to have a great methodology. We've got to have a big chart and graph that like shows it off. We need clear definitions of all these terms so that people who are going to be relatively judgy about this can go in and be like, well, I might not agree with everything they did, but I can see their logic and that they're probably in the right range. Definitely started a conversation. In fact, I didn't sign an NDA, but Elon did reach out to us about this and to see if he could get out of his deal, which obviously he did not. I have lots of fart sounds to make about that whole situation. All right, how are we going to do distribution here? So you have this piece, right, that we talked about earlier about the analyzing the content. I would try and plan these distribution channels out, like figure out which ones are going to make sense for you and which ones aren't. TikTok probably doesn't make sense for this. Facebook probably is not going to make sense, although it could, depending on the right communities. You get the right private groups, it could work. Discord, probably not the place. LinkedIn's going to be huge for you. Reddit's probably going to be huge for you. And then the distribution tactics. So if Reddit is huge, where are we going to go? Which sub-communities are we going to pitch it in? How are we going to do each of these things? You're building that map, right? You're showing your work and having a planned process, especially if you have put a tremendous amount of effort into a piece of content. Put a lot of effort into the distribution. Like, it's wild to me to be like, well, let's find out if it's going to work. We just sunk 100 hours into this thing. Send out a tweet. Okay, fingers crossed. What? Man, what are you doing? All right. Make a schedule for yourself. Put it on your calendar, right? If you put it on your calendar of, hey, I'm going to email this group of people about our content, asking them for their help and support. I'm going to put it on Facebook. I'm going to put it on that Reddit thread. I'm going to put up the LinkedIn thread. I'm going to host this interview about it or go on this show and talk about it. Great. Perfect. Love it. Amanda is the master of using viral likely formats. So for example, right, she will take a piece of content that sort of requires a link or a registration, and she'll turn it into a carousel of images or a visual, or she started doing Instagram videos for Sparktoro. Like Sparktoro has I think almost 1,000 followers now on Instagram versus 6 weeks ago when we had 0. Like she's taken this thing off like a rocket because she has taken the format of what people on Instagram are consuming and then said, hey, let me merge that with, Sparktoro is like a business audience research tool for marketers. Like that is not the kind of thing that usually does well on Instagram, but she's found the format to make it work. And this kind of thing is very effective. You can see her baiting, right, on Twitter here, right? Like here, we got 34 signups in an hour on LinkedIn and 3 on Twitter. And then she's like, oh, look at that. Here's the numbers, a little bit later. It's that like you're interested, even if you're not interested in the webinar, you're interested in following the story. You might as well use other people's publications. Publishing on your own platform, love it. Great, do it. I'm not trying to stop you. I'm not trying to tell you to build on rented land. But oftentimes when you create something, especially when you launch it, you know what it is? It's like you talked about, Ross and Jason, the multi-headline thing, right? Where you get many chances to write it, many chances to publish it. You also can publish it in many places. You can launch it here, then 30 days later on your own site, and 20 days later, you can guest about it on another place. Do it. Use those other publications. And you might as well listen while you're doing it. So if you want to set up, I have set up BuzzSumo alerts, which I like a whole bunch, but you can get notifications when people talk about particular topics. This is actually way harder to do in Twitter now, but I have heard from the LinkedIn API team that something might happen in the future there. And Casey and I had a conversation with someone on the API team. So I'm hopeful that more opportunities for social listening in more spaces will happen. And then, you'll be able to sort of, oh, this publication, this person, this outlet is talking about this thing. Now is the time to pitch them. And that timeliness is huge. This is my BuzzSumo alerts thing. I do it for audience research. So I just look for opportunities there and have had quite a bit of success just reaching out. And usually it's just Twitter or LinkedIn, sometimes an email. Really easy though. Okay. Thank you. These slides are going to be available soon, and we've got a few minutes for Q&A. And apologies, folks, I have to run like just a few minutes before the top of the hour, but Ross and Jason and Perna are going to stick with you. So,
that was so amazing, as always. Such incredible wisdom. Rand, I know you have to run, so let me toss the one question that's come in from Scotty, which says, where do you start if you don't have a network to reach out to for advice and insight for your content and strategy?
ooh, I mean, all right, this is not hyperbole. I love working with agencies and consultants. Like Sparktoro is a team of 3 people, and we use agencies and consultants for almost everything. And that includes help with, our marketing stuff, help with our conversion rate optimization, help with our landing pages, help with our web design, our finances and accounting and taxes. Like we do none of that stuff. And we work with consultants. And I think this is an area where, frankly, agencies and consultants see thousands of campaigns. And even though, I work at this company that's flashing you, right? Like, yes, I see a lot of stuff because I'm in marketing and I pay attention to this stuff, but nowhere near, I guarantee nowhere near what Ross sees. This would be my advice. I would start by finding an agency, a consultant, someone that you can, pay to help you upgrade that process and thinking and network. And yeah, that's my advice.
Ross,
thank you for the random logo flash, whoever's responsible for that.
Well, Ross, I want to toss it over to you.
I was just going to add to that. I'd say, yeah, I think that's great advice. And also, there seems to be this pushback against people picking brains, right? And like I tell you what, I wouldn't be here today unless people let me pick their brains. So find the people who inspire you, reach out to them. Don't ask them to pick their brain, but ask them if you can interview them for a blog and ask them the questions that you're trying to learn about. I didn't know crap about marketing automation when I started 10 years ago, but I found the experts and I reached out. I had my questions and I got my answers and I learned along the way. That and private communities right now. Like I'm not going to suggest any specifically, but there's these great private communities, especially for B2B, where you drop an answer in and 25 people answer you immediately. So start there, work for free. I know exposure bucks. I like exposure bucks, and be open to people picking your brain, for God's sake,
Yeah, just to add to that as well, Scotty, like if you want something a little kind of tactical, I'll ask you to do an exercise where you create 52 boxes, and that's a week for each week of the year. And you need to write a theme of what happens in your industry every week of that year by going on Google News or whatever. And then you start to find patterns in those themes that can overlap. And then you go on to Google dataset.google.com and you start putting that in if you don't have your own data, or you can use surveys or something like that, and start to look for interesting little bits and little nuggets that you can start to build things with. And that should be a catalyst to allow you to start building something out in a very DIY way, or at least inspire you to get going.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Scotty. That was a great answer. Rand, if you need to hop, feel free. It was such a pleasure. Thank
I
you
do need to
again.
hop. I'm so sorry, but I want to say thanks for everyone for joining, and thank you, Perna and Ross and Jason. You've been amazing co-hosts on this webinar. I really appreciate it. And please keep me in mind if there's something I can do to help you all.
Good to see you, Rand. Take care, buddy.
All right, take care.
Yeah.
Bye.
Oh, it's grilling time. And now there are 2, and now we can come in. All right. I know we have 5 minutes left, so I'm going to ask you both. And Ross, I'll start with you. This is the question that I have been getting all the time lately, which is that, listen, we all have had budget cuts. Like, what's one critical area? What's that you yourself are prioritizing or relying on for your content marketing campaigns? Is there either a strategy or a tactic?
Yeah, so we have a concept of flop risk, and it's really budget can be a factor in why something might not work. We've all done marketing and advertising where it will sometimes do well and it sometimes won't. And that's usually the way in which the creative is crafted and the angles and headlines you're allowed to use with that creative. So if you can make it a degree of interactivity inside of the content itself, that gives you multiple bites at the cherry. Every time you click a button, move a slider, change a filter, the story changes, and therefore the journalist or the social media account you're pitching also changes. So that's what I would look at. And back to this kind of like editorial themes throughout the year, lining that up so that one piece can be pitched multiple times a year is probably the kind of safest way to go.
Awesome. I love it. Jason, what about you? What are you doing?
So there's a couple things. I just say 2 really quick. One is cutting through the fluff, right? Getting straight to the point. And I think Rand touched on this on the who and the why. And I think I hate to use a big enterprise example, but I think Adobe does this really well with their Creative Cloud. And I mean, I'm the prime target for this, but literally I get an email that says everyone can Photoshop, or the ads are everyone can Photoshop, and the email is everyone can remove backgrounds. And it's very specific to me. And then I open the email and it says exactly what I want to do. And takes me to a landing page and it says, you're in the right place. Here's a video of how you do it. Here's a video of what success looks like. And here's your opportunity to shout about how you've done it yourself. And I think it's that simple format where it just cuts through. There's no 150-page ebook, or there's no video series. It's just simple, to the point. You're cutting through all the crap and getting straight to the core. But the creative they use is genius with the headlines. They're very simple. They're very to the point. The colors really pop. The images are unexpected. They almost juxtapose each other. So it's really, really cool. And the other thing I'll say really quick is where we found success at Tyke. We market to developers, man. You want to test your marketing skill set. Go against developers, a very challenging audience to get to, because they see right through this. And so I've become a much better marketer over the past year. But the point I'm saying is there's an look for the underserved audience, right? And go after that. We're finding success with API product managers right now. API is what we do. API product managers is a new job title. It's a new space. It's almost category creation happening before your eyes. This is a once in a lifetime marketing opportunity. Category creation that you don't have to jump onto, but you watch and it blossom. So we started a newsletter for API product managers. Started off small, very dedicated, underserved audience, but it's blowing up very quickly. Not blowing up, but for us, it's doing quite well. And the audience is growing, and people care about it, and people sharing it. But here's the key, and I have to give credit really quick to, and I'll zip it after this. But my Max on my team, brilliant content marketer, said, you know what? The beauty of it, Jason, is for that underserved audience, you don't have to change the content. You just have to change the targeting. And I thought that was really clever. So take that, experiment with those underserved audiences, get simple, to the point, have some fun, something that pops, and get straight to the pain point, cut through the fluff.
I love that. Ross, you promised us a contrarian take. I feel like I would need to hear it. Can we do one in 30 seconds?
A contrarian take. Well, actually, it's something that Jason said as a kind of just throwaway comment right in the middle when he was talking about social being very forgiving for you can do lots and lots of headlines and it doesn't really matter until you get the right one. And that would be mine as well. It would be redo and recopy yourself, and you'd be surprised how little people actually see your marketing. So keep publishing it and keep changing it and slowly differentiating it. We use a thing internally, well, just from a publishing point of view, to get it signed off, called a RAP sheet, which stands for research, angle, headline, pitch. So that's one bit of research with lots of angles, lots of headlines, and lots of pitches. And if one doesn't work, you bet we're just spinning it out, which is the contrary thing, especially if you're speaking to creatives. They're like, no, build it and they will come. We don't need to, you know, whip a dead horse or whatever. And I think Rand also mentioned it as well. Spend all this time on creative and nothing on distribution. Sweat is a good way to get distribution in a lot of cases. So that would be my slightly contrarian take.
Oh, I love it. Well, thank you. We delivered on all the promises, and clearly we could spend the next 24 hours chatting and not get fed up. But where can people find you? Jason, where should people find you if they want to connect with you, or where can they buy your book when it comes out, Second Skin?
Yeah, you can. Rock and Roll Cocktail is my website. If you go to the merch section, the pre-orders just started, and we're putting more info up there. But I'm Jason Millissier on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. Feel free to ping me and connect with me. Just like I spend a lot more time on Instagram these days, but at Jason Millissier there as well. Thunderflix, if you want to check it out, ping me. I'll get you a free trial, or you can go to the site and sign up for 7 days. Netflix for Metal. Just so many cool things happening. I just never. I love creating things and just making things and publishing things, and that's where I'm at today. But what a pleasure, Ross. We're going to connect because we're both in London, so I look forward to hanging with you. Brilliant job today, Perna. Always great to see you. And Anton, give him a shout for handling the live stream beautifully from the backstage area. But thank you for having me.
us. Ross, where can we find you?
I would usually just follow me on Twitter. I'm at rtabs on Twitter, or you can Google my company if you want to learn more. Type A Media. When is pre-order for high impact content marketing? When should we? Is pre-order open now?
It is. It's open right now on the on the shop of your choice, whether it's Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Goodreads. It is open. Thank you for that lovely question, Ross. It's so kind of you, but I'm always on LinkedIn or Twitter. That's my choice, at Perna Virji. But thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for this amazing chat, Ross, Jason, Rand, Anton, and thank you, Duda, for hosting this amazing chat. And can't wait to see you all again very soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks all.
Thank you. Bye.